Hi there, great to have you with us once again. I'm your host, Jeff Smith, and this is Leading Edge. We shared a conversation last week on Leading Edge that sparked a lot of reaction across Northwest Ohio. It began with a letter to the editor published in the Toledo Blade questioning whether years of effort and investment in Toledo are producing real economic momentum or whether loyalty to familiar strategies is slowing change. That letter was written by Darren Moore. In our interview, he raised questions many people quietly ask. Why do ideas leave? Why does talent struggle to stay? And if progress is coming, when? After that interview aired, we heard from people who said this isn't theoretical, it's personal. One of them was Chris Eischen. He's a Bedford native, a Toledo entrepreneur, and a volunteer leader behind Toledo Tech Loft, an incubator of sorts for Toledo's tech industry. Now, he didn't respond to argue with the letter. He responded because much of it felt familiar. And today, we continue the conversation not by repeating the critique, but by asking what happens when someone decides to build anyway. Here's our conversation with Chris. What spoke to you about that letter to the editor?
Well, really, it's the frustration of people have approached me since we've started the Tech Loft asking me where they can get some support. And right now I have a good friend from Toledo working out of Cleveland to launch her idea. And then I have another friend that went to Columbus to get the support to launch their idea. And so it was really everything that Darren said. It's like, it's a shame to see all of this talent and all of these ideas have to leave the city to get that support that they need.
When you say support, I want you to dive down to the word support. What does that mean? What does that look like for a non-business listener, somebody who's watching us? Does that mean money? Does that mean infrastructure?
Well, support and all those things. Yeah. So it's connections. So if I'm in need of manufacturing, having connection to those that can produce the product that I'm looking to get produced. That was one issue that I know entrepreneurs have left the city to go into other cities to find that support. That was several friends of mine had to launch companies like that. When it comes into the tech support and the tech space, they're going there to get that the doers, the people that can actually help them get the work done because they don't know where to go here in Toledo. So there used to be Jumpstart and these different organizations that were active in Toledo, and they've all left. And so that's really where, as the Toledo Tech Loft, we've kind of taken this place of those companies and organizations that were doing that work before. The difference is that we don't have any funding for us. Like, we're just doing the work because we see the need. And so do you have to take it.
Let me ask you this, because I've heard from developers in the past, and they've said it's an uphill battle trying to get things approved when you come to the city of Toledo. Talk about starting a business. How difficult is it? What is the misunderstanding for our viewers that they don't see behind the scenes? If they're a teacher, if they work in healthcare, what are they not seeing?
It's hard to explain. So when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing it all. You're wearing all the hats. And so you need to understand how to balance your books. You need to understand how to do all of the different things that are necessary in running a business. And a lot of these organizations exist to add support to take off some of those hats so that you can say, hey, I'm connecting you with an accountant. I'm connecting you with a CPA or attorney, whatever it is that you need to kind of get the business started. And this is what Darren spoke to, is like VC capital. We have these entrepreneurs that have a business, they've gotten it off the ground, they're able to prove the model and get customers, but then they're looking for investment. In order to take it to the next level, they need a injection of capital. And we don't have that VC community in this area that's investing in this area. It's not to say that those people don't exist. They're not coming here with investment money. They might go to Cleveland or they might go to Cincinnati with that money to make those investments.
You know,
And so
he gave me the example of Dan Gilbert in Detroit, but I mean, does it take that kind of A-lister, that high-profile marquee person to kick things off in Toledo? Is that what you're saying?
well, I
Because
mean,
because Darren said the money is here.
right, it is. It's just being invested outside. So we might have someone here may have a really good idea, but there's how do I pitch it locally? There's not that platform doesn't exist to pitch it locally to then get those investors to even look here. And so they're going and they're looking in these other cities for that investment.
Was there anything in what Darren wrote in that letter to the editor that made you uncomfortable or made you say, I recognize that problem. I can relate to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I also was a startup that I was starting, my background was doing everything digital, online, no overhead, low overhead, no brick and mortar type business. And I wanted to create something here in Toledo. And so I tried to connect with those local organizations to get the funding, to get the support. And it was like email after email after email, effort after effort with no feedback from the other end. And it got to the point where I just got kind of tiresome of making that effort. And that's what I hear over and over from companies that were downtown that have moved to Maumee or other areas, maybe Perrysburg. They made that move because they weren't getting any feedback from the local powers that be to help keep them here.
So you're saying basically there is not a structure that exists to assist.
There's organizations that are meant to carry that weight, but don't seem to be making those efforts. And there seems to be a lot of finger pointing at whose responsibility it is, as opposed to just somebody stepping up and doing the work. It's, well, that's not my job kind of mentality.
Stay right there when we come back. Why Chris says the system that's supposed to help entrepreneurs often goes silent. All right, welcome back. So now the focus is going to shift from what's missing to who is responsible for filling those gaps. Beginning here, Chris Eischen, he starts naming the institutions he says entrepreneurs turn to for help and what happens when those doors don't open.
Well, there's organizations that already exist that are meant to fulfill those things. And
Such as?
Man, that puts me in, I'm calling organizations out. It's like, I'll just say it. Our Chamber of Commerce is it's a stonewall. I hear it over and over and over from local small businesses that are going to the chamber trying to get the support and don't get anywhere. That's exactly where I ran into a stone wall with my business. And so it's just, and then when I have the conversation with the leadership there, it's like, well, what are you talking about? We're doing everything correctly. All of our members say that we're amazing. And so then there's like this lack of openness to growth. So,
one of the things that came out of my conversation with Darren was not knowing what you don't know.
right.
Do you kind of reflect on that, touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know is really about they've operated in a certain way for the past 20, 30 years. Nobody's complained about it, right? They've just gone about business as usual. And the thing is we've reached a point where we need to shift our focus, that the reality is this manufacturing isn't our future. That definitely is a past of ours. It's something that we can be proud of and that, we can hang our hat on. But as AI and automation and all these things take over, we have to come to the realization that the jobs aren't going to necessarily be in the manufacturing. And if we're not thinking ahead, we're going to end up a lot like Flint, Michigan, and these other cities that were very heavy automotive that, now sit desolate. And we have these opportunities with these data centers. These things are huge opportunities for us. And there's such a misconception out there on the value that they do provide. There's oh, they're going to ruin our water or suck down all of our power supply. And that's just propaganda that, like, when you really go in and research the companies that are looking to build here, they're thinking about the water. They aren't even the level of like a nuclear power plant that's using their water for coolant. And so a lot of the hype is just wrongly focused. And the reality is we don't want all of the data centers, but we do need them, especially in manufacturing. It's really a security issue.
I want to go back to automotive for a second because obviously
Yeah.
there is the investment that Stellantis is making, 900 new jobs as far as a new vehicle at the Jeep plant. I think what I'm hearing from you, though, is a reliance on that being the sole focus. Is that accurate?
Well, reliance and we have to understand that those jobs are going to become less and less. There's going to be less and less of them, right? As more and more of these automations are implemented. And AI is just going to advance that even more. I mean, you look the potential with these robots and what that could do in the next 5 years it's really mind-boggling. And if we're not thinking about that and we're going to ignore those facts, we are just going to be in a world of hurt in 5 years from now.
Let me ask you something. One of the things that Darren brought up in his letter to the editor, he said, I do not fault people for leaving. I do not fault them for going elsewhere. So, as a Bedford native, is it safe to say that you are also the one who is holding out that hope that something turns? Why haven't you left?
I've wanted to so bad. And the reality is that my kids keep me here. I'm divorced, so I have to be here if I want to be a active role in my child's life. But I'm at that point now. My son's 25 and lives in Florida going to college. So there's no more have to for me. It's completely a choice. And if I'm being a completely transparent, the idea of the tech loft was the last ditch effort to say, hey, I gave it everything I could to make this thing happen, and it just isn't happening. Because if I made this level of effort in Columbus, we'd be massively successful, and we'd be already up to speed. So I understand there's a culture shift that needs to take place, but that's also why I'm here, is because I came from the factory. I came from GM, and I saw what that did to my family. I'm not blaming the job that drove my divorce, but my divorce was the catalyst for me to get into the tech industry. And through that, I've created time freedom, financial freedom, and that's possible for others. And my thing is that I love, manufacturing is a good thing. We need it. I do think that it's going to dwindle with technology advancements. So for that reason, I think we should be focusing on tech. But I also look at the benefit that that's brought my life and my lifestyle and my family and my connection with my son and my wife and everything. It's just, it's transformed my life.
You've got the OIs, you've got the OCs, you've got the Stellantis, you've got the Andersons. Do those organizations need what you're selling?
A lot of the companies that are here have been around for a very long time. There isn't huge innovations happening in the glass industry in the sense of how we make mugs. So like Libby isn't like going to transform. Now what they can do is implement AI in their production processes and start cutting some expenses, some loss there. So yeah, there's definitely some opportunities for improvement. There's definitely, as automation improves, robotics and things of that nature, you're definitely going to see a need for those things because these companies are going to have to, scale up on how they produce.
Chris, thanks for sharing your perspective. Stay right there. We're looking at about 100 days before a May primary whittles the GOP field in the race for District 9. We handicap the race right after this. Welcome back. Lucas County Republican Party member Tom Winooski joined me this week to discuss the GOP field looking to unseat Marcy Kaptur. What jumps out at you about this field, first and foremost?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one is I'm happy to see a number of people who are interested in the position. I think it gives people a choice. I think also from a party standpoint, Jeff, it's not like we're coronating somebody and say, no, you're our person. So let's let everybody debate it out. And I think that's good for our whole process of choosing the right person for this position. As you know, it's a position that has been held a long time by Congresswoman Kaptur. And there are a lot of folks in the GOP that would like to take that position over with the redistricting that has happened. It's a palatable and winnable position. So it's good to see that.
Viable candidates. What stands out to you about maybe 4 potential yeses?
I think that Josh Williams, Derek Marin are the experience. Maybe that's not the right word, Jeff, but they're the folks that have a bit of a track record. So you can go back to see how they voted in the state house. I've met with all but Ms. Sheehan, all of the candidates. I even liked Wayne Kinzel before he dropped out. A nice young guy with a nice family, served in the military, great guy, runs that great business, Voodoo Brewing. And I don't know much about Ms. Sheehan, but so it's hard for me to handicap her. And then Alina Dean is same way. I sat with her at an event in Oregon, and I really didn't know her, but I started talking to her. She's sitting at my table. I said, well, what do you do? Or what's going on? And that's when she says she's running for Congress. So I think we have some great candidates, not only in terms of their passion for public service, but also in the case of Josh and Derek, a history of how they voted to let the public know where they are in terms of their values for this area.
What's going to decide this race in your view? Is it going to be money? Is it going to be message? Or is it going to be overall organization?
Well, it's probably a little of both, and I know a little of all three, and I know that may sound like a political response, but in my campaigning and in my talking with the candidates, you have to have all of that organization, and that requires money. You can't knock on every door, but through some strategy, you can see which doors you need to knock on best. And I use knock on door in the sense of just communicating with the constituents. Very few people are answering their doors anymore, or they see you on your Ring camera and say, hey, not interested in talking to you. I've had doors slammed in my face when I was campaigning. So you got to take a different approach, whether that's social media, whether that's direct mail. So I think that communication is necessary. And in order to do that, you have to have a good staff to strategize that. And that takes money. So I think all three. But bottom line, my friend, is this. And I think people see this, and I hope they saw this when I was serving on council. Candidates have to be genuine. They have to be genuine about constituent services. They have to understand the area that they want to serve in and know that they can talk eye to eye with somebody, with a voter, and either say, I can do this, I want to do this, or no, I'm not going to be able to do this or cannot do that. So I think honesty always remains the best policy.
Talk to me about Lucas County, Tom. How vital is it as we look at the district?
Well, with Toledo, Lucas County being the largest of the area of the 9th District, it's extremely important. And as you know, and as I've experienced...
Let me ask it this way. Can somebody win 9 by running up the rural vote?
I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But I feel bad because even the combination of all the other counties that make up the 9th District, that representation needs to be there. In other words, you have to, while Toledo and Lucas County might be more formidable with the blue collar worker and the UAW worker, there's still enough in the rural counties where we have to be able to address what is agriculture in our community and what does that contribute to the economy. So you have to have that perspective. Ms. Sheehan is from that more rural area. But I think, regardless, the numbers are just too strong for Toledo and Lucas County. So I hope whoever our candidate is, that they understand what the agricultural component, what it is like in the farm community to make sure those needs are addressed.
Does one of these candidates have to come forward? And maybe we're writing the playbook for them right here and now. Does one of these candidates have to come forward and say, Toledo, you need this, I'm going to get this done?
Well, I think there's definitely fodder for that. We have too high of an unemployment rate in Lucas County as compared to the other 87 counties in Ohio, not to say what else is in the district. Our crime rate is too high. And that's what I mean about constituent services. So understanding this area as well as the outlying areas and what directly affects them. I would say this though, Jeff, and I was reading a great book, Pope John Paul II, and he talked about folks who want to do public service in the public square. And when they do it for power, it starts to fog everything. But if you do it for the reason of making this area more livable in affordability, less crime, support our law enforcement, and do it without a lot of baloney. I get tired of the politics and some of this stuff. Then you're a true public servant. And I think our candidates are true public servants. I've known them personally, and they really want to help the community.
Tom, thanks for your time. A final word right after this. Thanks as always for joining us. Until next time, listen, learn, and lead.